Okay, so
Greetings. Today we're here with Bill Johnson, actor, producer, editor, cosplayer. He does a lot of stuff. This guy's been around for a very long time. Most of you people know him. You've seen him in the comic conventions. You've seen him in the films. You've seen him on TV. You may have even seen him on SNL twice. So we're here with Ron Perillo and Lance Panic. And this is Bronx Heroes Comic Con Live. Let's get started. Greetings and greetings, everybody. Bill, nice to have you with us today.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
How are you surviving this ongoing pandemic?
Yeah, I definitely am missing the cons and all the contact with all the creative people and all the artists and all the cosplayers.
You know, you've had a pretty good year despite this pandemic. You have like 3 films that just came out that are available for people to watch now.
It's about constantly creating content, and then when it's ready, they just kind of release it. And I've been real lucky about that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. I mean, I was just like watching a few of your clips and stuff. And I mean, number one, you're a great actor. I mean, you're a good guy. And I think that, you know, when you and I have conversations, I mean, you just, you know, you really have your heart on your sleeve. You're just a genuine person, and I think that shows in your roles. You know, like your authenticity.
Thanks.
You know, I mean, how did this all? What led you to? I mean, not just cosplay, but acting in general. Like, what led you on this path?
You know, when you're about to go to middle school, you got to try to find yourself and find out who you're going to be. Right. And even though I was good in school, I wasn't the best athlete, wasn't the best looking. So I wasn't getting me a lot of attention from the girls. But I did a play, and then the whole school saw it. And all of a sudden, this nerdy, skinny 12-year-old kid became a big shot at school. So I'm like, you know what? I need to stick with theater. That's my lane.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I tried that as a kid, and I wasn't good at it.
Yeah. Well, what made mine a success was that in this particular this play was called The Playground, and it was about bullying long before there was this anti-bullying campaign.
Right.
So each one of the kids on the playground had something different. One was fat, one was skinny.
Right.
My character was a guy who was kind of like the mama's boy, kind of again nerdy, but also very much like the mama's boy. So he got picked on for not being, you know, as manly or as butch as some of the other boys.
Right.
And in this play, there was a girl there with a funny nose. So all of us kids with our problems made more fun of the girl with the funny nose. And during the course of the play, my character was dared to kiss this girl. And I kissed the girl with the funny nose in the play. And then she felt good about that. And then the other kids did the whole, you know, Georgie pudding pie, kissed the girl and made her cry. Because my thing was that, hey, I would do anything on a dare, even kiss a pig.
Mm-hmm.
That was a horrible line, but the fact that I kissed a girl on stage in front of the entire school made me a hero.
Yeah. That's cool. And then you went to Towson University. Yeah, I mean, you're living in Baltimore right now, right?
Yeah, I came home. Well, when back in March, when COVID hit New York really, really hard, and New York was epicenter, I said I needed to get out of New York before I wouldn't be able to get out of New York, and I wanted to be with family. And my family's here in Baltimore. So I left back in March because my job, I have a regular corporate job as well, and they've allowed me to work from home, which gives me all the freedom in the world because I just go in, I do my 7 hours, and then I'm free. So I take my time from 7 to 3 working for them, and then at 3 o'clock I'm free. But working from home, you can work from anywhere. I didn't have to stay in New York. So I said, let me come back to Baltimore. We've got high internet here. at home, so I can work from here and still be with family, not be alone, stuck in my 3-room apartment.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I'm so glad I got out of the city myself. I'm in the woods right now, and
Right.
unfortunately, people think it's a hoax over here, so they're not walking around wearing masks. So it's like it's a little crazy. So let's go back to Baltimore. You're at the Towson University. What was that like? Going to Towson.
I went to Towson because Towson had the best theater department around in the Maryland area. It was much better than any of the other schools, other than possibly University of Maryland College Park, but that's way out at Eastern Shore. Yeah. Towson is in town, and I worked in town, so I was able to work and go to college and still live at home. And they had a fantastic theater department. And part of being a theater major at Towson was you had to learn everything, including learning to make costumes, which later came in handy in terms of making cosplay.
Right. So everything comes back full circle.
And the acting thing led to me saying, if I'm going to do a character, I need to take on the embodiment of that character. So if people see me at a Comic-Con, my personality as Green Lantern is different from Luke Cage, is different from the Joker, is different from a pimp named Slickback.
One of my favorites.
Which is also different from my Coming to America cosplay, which people loved.
That one's good too. Yeah, that one's fantastic too. Yeah.
And sometimes, a cosplay may hit me that I want to do it, and I'm not sure if it will be well received by other people. Right. And I get to an event and I realize how many other people also like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think one of the more controversial cosplays that you did was when you did the Tim Curry.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like people were like, "What?" I mean, people were just like totally shocked. I mean, not many people pull that off, but you work out, so it looked phenomenal,
And I only did it because Tim Curry was supposed to be at that Comic-Con. That's the only reason I did it.
Yeah.
I wanted to give back to him because, again, as an actor, I studied Tim Curry's works and all of his films. He's a tremendous character actor, and that's what I wanted to do.
Right.
So when I saw that my icon was going to be at Comic-Con, and he did a character that I could do if I was brave enough, I said, I'm going to do it. And once I convinced myself to do it and started buying all the pieces, slowly I got all the pieces together. I had it ready to go. And then probably about 3 weeks before that Comic-Con, they announced that Tim Curry was not going to be there. Oh. But I had already done all the work, bought all the pieces, and gotten my courage together. And I said, I'm going to do this no matter what, because if I don't do it now, I may never do it again.
Right.
And when I got there, even though Tim Curry wasn't there, there also were tons of fans there looking to see Tim Curry.
Right.
They were disappointed. And when they saw me, I got a lot of that Tim Curry, Frankenfurter love that they were saving it to give to him.
Right.
It was amazing the number of people that came up to me crying because as people in the LGBTQ community, that character of Frankenfurter was a strong character for them and gave them strength.
Exactly. Especially during that time period,
Yeah. And so many of these, the young, gay men and women that came up to me said that character was the first character that spoke to them, a character that was an outsider, that empowered himself.
Right.
And people were actually hugging me and crying.
Wow.
And that was really overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing what a cult phenomenon Rocky Horror was. Those midnight showings they used to have when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Every week, every Friday, you'd be going on.
Midnight,
and everybody, before anybody even heard of cosplay, people were wearing the costumes.
Yes.
And acting out and singing and dancing in the aisles.
Yeah, and in the East Village, I remember the midnight showings. I used to go there with an ex-girlfriend when I was in college, and we'd go to them.
And that was another thing. A lot of people in their 50s and 60s that used to do that in college saw me, and they were just there, just bringing their grandkids.
Right.
And then the grandparents saw me, and it brought back a memory to the grandparents of their youth. And the grandparents took photos of me and were happy to see me.
Yeah. No, that was a very powerful costume. I remember it was just like, wow. I mean, you're wearing, oh, go ahead.
And when I can do something like that, to me, that's giving back and using my gifts and my talents and the courage that I built in myself to give back to make other people feel good.
Right. It's just like when you're acting, you're on a set and you don't see the people's reaction to you. But when you're doing cosplay, it's an immediate response. And I think that's pretty amazing. That communication that you have with the audience, it's
but also as a trained theater professional, I love live theater for that very same reason.
Mm-hmm.
You can hear the audience's response, and afterwards you can go outside and shake the hand and get hugs and approval and appreciation from these people that watch your performance.
Right, exactly.
So I definitely see cosplay as a performance. So pretty much I try to stay in character the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
So that meant that in doing Frankenfurter, that meant that for like 10 hours for the first time in my life, I was in like 6-inch heels and pantyhose and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And
I didn't even feel the pain.
It's just like when I first saw that movie, that was like out of the box. There was nothing like that. And nowadays, I see millennials. Like I introduced it to a friend of mine, him and his girlfriend. He was like, "Oh, I'm taking my girlfriend. We're gonna watch this movie at home because there's no theater to go to." So he says, "Well, make a suggestion." So I suggested, Rocky Horror. He called me. He's like, "What the hell was that?" Like he he didn't like it. I was like, well, "What do you mean? What's there not to like?" So it just shows that how we've grown. You and I and like other people who grew up with it embrace it, but other people who never experienced it, it's something that's shocking. So I feel like we've become more, as a society, like more conservative, which I don't think it's good. I think it's closed-mindedness, maybe a little bit,
Yeah, but I also think it was the audience participation of people seeing that on TV for the first time won't necessarily get the impact of seeing it in a theater.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Because usually when they're in the aisles and stuff.
Mm-hmm. The first time I saw it was at Towson University, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
They did it as the movie for like the Halloween weekend, and I was a part of like the campus union board, which meant that we were in charge for a lot of like the movies and the events there at college. Because I got to college and I got very involved.
Right.
And they wanted to do the movie, The Rocky Horror Picture Show. I had not seen The Rocky Horror Picture Show. Mm-hmm. And so the first night I volunteered to be there all 3 showings. The very first showing, I was just like, tearing tickets out and, checking people for like bottles. They couldn't bring in bottles into the student center. Mm-hmm. And I went in and watched the movie, and then I saw how like people got involved in it. I'm like, what is this? And then I went and got the soundtrack, fell in love with the music. The next 2 nights for me was like, it wasn't work anymore. It was enjoyment.
Yeah. As a kid, I remember the TV show That's Hollywood. They used to always feature that in the intro. And it always made me curious, like, what is that movie? And then years later, going to the actual theater in the West Village and seeing it, they're doing the midnight show.
So what other plays did you actually go on making along with the Rocky Horror Picture Show? What else were you getting involved with?
Well, at Towson, the very first big main stage play I did was a play called Playboy of the Western World, which is an Irish play. Mm-hmm. At Towson University as a theater major, I was the only Black male student that was like matriculating, meaning was a part of the theater department and taking all the course requirements. Mm-hmm. So they didn't give me a lot of roles. Their excuse was, well, we don't have any other Black people to be in the show with you. So we just can't cast you as like the son with white parents or the Black husband with the white wife and white kids. So I didn't get a lot of roles at college. I didn't think that was fair because I was playing student dues and fees just like everybody else.
Right.
So in Playboy of the Western World, I played the best friend of the lead character, but it was set in Ireland. Mm-hmm. So we all had to have Irish accents. And I worked really hard on my accents. So I became really good at doing accents because of that. Mm-hmm. Also, I became very good at taking small roles and making the most of them and making them memorable. Mm-hmm. So it was good in terms of like helping me learn to study and work harder as an actor. Mm-hmm. But it was not good in terms of giving me the exposure of being a lead character or a main role.
Right, because you would think if you're an actor, you can play any part. I mean,
Correct.
It
And it's
doesn't
common.
matter. Right.
Exactly. When you were doing Last Lost Love, to get into the role of the father, you know,
Yeah.
that's not how I'm used to seeing you. I was like, wow, this is so different. Like, you know, what did you do to prepare for that? 'Cause that's not
I have.
you know.
I know a few men that have that kind of violent tone or demeanor.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to kind of channel that.
Right.
And in that particular movie, like my character's playing a cop who's a bad cop, who has a wife and son at home, but then he also has a girlfriend on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And he drinks. And so I channeled that whole being angry and being aggressive and not liking my wife. And the thing is, it was produced by an actual cop.
Mm.
And so for that movie, we actually had to use a real gun,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm deadly afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
So before we could use it, I had the cop take the gun outside and shoot it 9 times. It was empty, but I wanted to prove that. I wanted him to shoot it 9 times into the front yard to make sure that it was completely empty before I handled it. Didn't want any accidents.
Mm-hmm.
And then during this course of the scene, I actually shoot my wife.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave her the gun
Mm-hmm.
and let her shoot it 9 times to show that it was empty. I also shoot my son. I gave that actor the gun. I said, I don't want anybody to be afraid that something bad might happen. So I want everybody to shoot this gun to make sure it's empty.
Mm-hmm.
And the more times they shot it, it also reassured me that I didn't have to worry about the gun. All I had to do was worry about my acting.
Right. Yeah. But that was a powerful performance, you know.
And it was very, very harsh and traumatic. But you know what? Before I did that, and I know you've seen these crime reenactment shows.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was a time when I was being hired a lot to do these crime reenactment shows. And basically, they take you back to the actual scene of the crime,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to go through the motions. And in the voiceover, there's the actual cops that are going to tell you what's happening. But as the actor, they take you back to the scene and they say, this is where someone got beat up or raped or killed. And unfortunately, they like to focus a lot on black male criminals who are about 6 feet tall.
Right.
So they were calling me a lot to reenact these criminal roles.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of obscure your face somewhat. My family did not want me doing it at all, but it was money.
Right.
And every week I would get into the set and they would take me to this horrible crime, the actual scene.
Right.
And I would read the police report as to what happened, and then I'd have to, in my mind, act that out. They don't give you any dialogue.
Right.
You have to make that up. So if there was in one particular scene, I had to rape 2 women.
Right.
2 actors I don't know. I had to act this out. So I've got to get into the mindset of a rapist. So I got to make up stuff in my own head because there's no line. And I have to do this over and over again. And I have to meet these 2 women and then turn around and act like I am raping them. And at the end of the take, everybody's running up to the women, asking them, are you okay, honey? Are you okay? You okay with this? You're okay, honey. And nobody came to see if I was okay.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, there's definitely something different between acting when you're reading the script and improv. I mean, improv is just...
No, I mean, I think I once read about some famous actor who was like, how to do a similar kind of scene. And he said, like, I mean, he was like nauseous the night before they filmed, you know, where he was going to actually be having to like rape somebody. I think it was, it actually was Game of Thrones, I think. Remember the, what was it? The one who raped the Stark girl on their wedding night or something?
Right. The red.
Right.
Wedding.
Yeah. Or I think it was he who actually said that he felt nauseous the night before.
I would get like these tension headaches after every scene. So I finally called him and said, please don't call me anymore.
Right.
I didn't like the way it made me feel, and I didn't like the way that they were constantly highlighting that this is who Black men are.
Yeah, that's typecast. I mean, that's not how everyone is. I mean, it's just you're being typecast, and that's not right.
Yeah, I mean, I remember there was this comedy movie in the 80s called by Robert. Remember the comedian Robert Townsend at all?
Oh yeah, yes.
Yeah. You know, he was like brilliant, but sort of like, I don't know what happened to him, you know, but he did a movie where it was all about that experience of going out on auditions and like, and people would say like, oh, that your complexion isn't the right thing. Or like, and the guy would come in there being like literally a Shakespearean actor. And they said, oh, we want to cast you as the mugger.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and that was actually in this film in 1987. I mean, he was so way ahead of his.
Well, I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say that he was ahead of it, but he was just bold enough to say what was actually
right. But I'm saying for somebody to actually do a satire of it in the late 80s, was
well, that was something that was ever present. You know, I mean, if you think about black cinema in general, you couldn't join the union. So, you know, when they were making what we consider blaxploitation films today, like Melvin Peebles had to register. He could only make movies if it was designated as pornography, you know, and that's how they were able to shoot films without unions getting involved and interfering. So that's why you'll see a lot of those objectified, overly sexual films, you know, like Body and Soul and things like that, because it had to have that element in it to avoid, you know, the union busting and the union coming down, and the production companies and all that stuff. So that's how they bypass that. So there's always been, I think, in Hollywood especially.
It still goes on.
Illusion, it still goes on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because that Townsend movie wasn't even about like blaxploitation movies. It was actually about trying to get roles in mainstream Hollywood films.
The history of it. The history of it is that. Yeah.
Just recently, I was called in to do like some background work on SVU. Right. It was me and another black guy. We were playing perps in the precinct. And during the scene, we get walked in handcuffs and thrown into a cell. There was me, and then there was another guy there who was a lighter skinned guy and had shorter hair. I come in this complexion with my afro, and immediately they said, we need one of you guys to be the perp. You. Instantly, it was me.
You with the afro. I was like,
exactly. And the dark skin guy with the afro. And this was just 6 months ago.
Right. Still, yeah. How was it working on Luke Cage Netflix? I mean, that's pretty cool that you got to work on that.
That was amazing. And again, that was by chance. They called me and asked me, was I available? But they called me and I'd left work and they called me while I was on the subway train home. Couldn't get the call. I get to the gym. My phone dies. I can't call them back. I go to the locker room. I plug it up, let it charge up for 15 minutes. So I can call them and tell them, yes, I'd be available. They said, oh, no, the role's already been cast. But if something else comes up, we'll give you a call. Right. I was so disappointed. And then about a week later, they called me and they said, we've got another scene coming up where we need someone to be a boxer. Are you available? I said, yes. Now, I'm glad that the first call missed because the first call, I saw that scene. That's a scene that my friend Demetrius Angelo was in.
Right.
They're playing like bank robbers, but that scene is shot completely at dark at night. So if you don't know like Demetrius's body shape or that he has long hair and a ponytail, you may not know that it's Demetrius.
Right.
If I had answered my phone call then, I would have been a part of that scene.
Right.
A week later, I get to be a boxer in a boxing room in full light.
Right.
So it was much better.
Yeah,
things worked out for me.
Right. That's cool.
And
I
as a boxer,
didn't realize that was Demetrius.
and as a boxer in that scene, I'm playing against a young Luke Cage. They had all of us lined up as being boxers. But when we got to the set, they found out that they knew already that I was 6 feet tall. The other boxers were about like 4 inches shorter than me. The other guys it selected were about 4 inches shorter than me and smaller. So they said, you're definitely bigger, so we're going to make you the referee. And the other boxers in the scenes, they were kind of like in the shadows in the background. But again, because I was taller and bigger and they made me the referee, that put me center stage there with their main actors.
Right.
And these other actors were like young guys who were like 17, 18, but they were small for their size. So they're supposed to be playing like a 14 or 15-year-old Luke Cage. with me being bigger and taller, that definitely made them look younger and smaller, and me look more like the adult.
Right.
So everything had a way of working out. And also in that scene, the director wanted me to do a countdown. When Luke Cage knocks out, when the young Luke Cage knocks out the young Razorback, they wanted me to do a countdown, the countdown to 10. One director told me that. Another director said, no. He can't speak. Because if you speak in a film, in a union film, you get paid more money and you get paid residuals.
Right.
Netflix didn't want to pay me more money and didn't want to pay me residuals. So they said, you just mouth the countdown.
What the? How annoying is that?
And it's crazy to think that that's still happening in 2020.
Yeah, it's still happening. It's still happening. I years ago, like 4 years ago, I auditioned for The Deuce as an extra. I was on that website, backstage. They gave me a call. They told me when to come in, but I was on a flight to San Diego. So I told them for the Comic-Con, and I said, well, I can't make it. They said, well, we'll be shooting next week too. So after the con, I'd be able to go on set. And it was nothing big. But then when they said, send us their pictures, and I sent my pictures, then, the following week when I'm back in New York, they're like, well, we're not looking for people with curly hair. And I was like, what do you mean curly hair? Then I would say, we don't want Hispanic people. But then actually they changed the listing for characters. They specifically said, we don't want people with cornrows or dreads or this or that, or curly hair. But then everyone's wearing Afro wigs in that TV show. And I was like, yes, well, that doesn't make any sense. I was like, you're casting, if you don't want ethnic people, you just want to, either black or white, it's like, but then they're very selective. The only black people on that TV show that I saw were pimps and hookers. That was it. And it's like, oh yeah. So it's like I think that we're going back to that. Like I feel like we're going backwards, and maybe that's part of the whole Trumpism, like the Trump world, where people came out of their little hidey holes and being more in your face with their racism. But
right,
it's I wouldn't say it's not just Republicans. I would say even some people that would consider themselves liberals also came out of that direction as well. Yeah. So then I wasn't on The Deuce.
But Bill, I see that you're also not only just an actor, you've also written. I mean, you're also like to write as well. I mean, I've done some writing myself, and being an actor gives you a better understanding when you do begin to write too, because you can feel, what it's like to actually envision what these people are doing as your actors, if you're actually writing too. Yeah.
Well, in terms of writing, I try not to do as much writing, but I will take someone else's writing and make it my own. I'm much more about the producing and directing, so I can tell my story, because every story that's told is actually the director's vision, no matter who writes it. It's how that director sees that piece and puts it together, or that producer puts it together. And I think that as a producer, I can tell stories, and particularly like humanize Black people, and particularly humanize Black men, and the portrayals how I direct them. Because I've received scripts where I'm paying the angry husband or the abusive husband, and nowhere in the script does it say why my character is angry or abusive. It's just that this is the way this writer has written it. This is the way this director wants to depict Black men or a Black family.
That is so frustrating, because I write as well, and I don't think that way. I think of like you just mentioned, what is it making these people angry? You'd like to have a backstory as to what is it. I mean, are they, did they have a rough childhood? I mean, they have an experience,
some sort of depth. Yeah.
Right. More depth with the character. And do you prefer plays where you actually see people, you're in front of an audience, or being in front of a camera is different than being in
I definitely prefer people, seeing people, hearing people.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, and Avoidable Fate, that movie when you played Calvin, I mean, you're faced with that again. Tell us about that.
And that was done in we shot that in one day. Yeah. And because it was COVID time, it's only a two-person play. I mean, a two-person movie. And it turned out, I think it's about maybe 10 minutes, but we shot it over 6 hours on the streets of Harlem. And because it was COVID, we shot all of my lines individually without her. Mm-hmm. And then we went back because we wanted to do social distancing. And then we went back and we shot her scenes without me, with me off camera, just saying, just her, focusing on her. And then we shot certain scenes briefly with us close together. And again, he had to be somebody who was upset with the church and how the church had betrayed him and his family, and how his parents had chosen to give the church and give to God more so than taking care of their family. Mm-hmm. And to that, you just kind of tap into any kind of disappointment that you may have had and kind of turn it and use it for that particular story.
Right. And then and Lost Cause, or your Ramesses, Yeah.
Okay, that was people. They're basically, even before The Boys came out, that particular producer was trying to put together this movie called Lost Cause. And it's about cosplayers who kind of start to fight crime. They're not like superheroes in The Boys, they're actually real people that start to fight crime. And some of them get superpowers through chemicals and things like that, where they become superheroes. But again, they've all got a bad side. So I auditioned for the role of the Aquaman type character, which, who kind of had some issues, but they, for whatever reason, they said they didn't want me for that. So they didn't call me. And then probably about 3 months later, they say, we have another role. We had another actor that was doing this particular role, but he didn't quite work out. Would you be interested in coming on board and doing this character of Ramses? You get to create him the way you'd like him. They just gave me some basic parameters.
Very cool.
And they had him written as a very stereotypical, flamboyant, gay character. And again, these are straight white guys writing this stereotypically flamboyant, gay, white character. And I said, you know what? I will do this character. But no, they even showed me the audition tape of the other guy. And I said, I will not be doing it like this because he's playing into all the stereotypes. Right. And you being, not a part of the LGBT community, and me not being a part, we're not gonna put forth that negative image of this crying Nancy guy mincing around.
Right.
I will give you what I give you, and there will be some strength to him, and there's going to be some solidity to him. And they liked that. And what I gave them was actually so much more than they'd asked for, that they wrote additional scenes for me and brought me back to do more.
That's amazing. That's great. You can add so much more to a production, and they didn't notice that later. They just see one dimensional, and you sort of make it into something even with a character that has more than just one dimension.
But as a writer, they always tell you, write what you know.
Exactly.
Of course, right.
And clearly they're not.
Exactly, they didn't. They just thought that he would be a funny character.
Yeah, I think, the thing with Hollywood, you could see that clearly. That's why I think shows and even comic books, you see that where people aren't writing what they know. They're not putting their experience into these stories. And that's why the readership has gone down. And that's why it's like Netflix, you have Hulu, you have Disney Plus, you have all these shows, Amazon with a glut of just all these productions. And you could literally skim through them and see what's good quality and what's not good quality. Right. You could have even good actors and just have a really bad film because the director and the writer just are clueless, and they're not directing these fabulous actors to really come into their own and make it their own.
Well, like when Marvel first did Luke Cage, they said, let's put him in the yellow disco shirt because black guys are going to have a yellow fancy yellow shirt. And let's let him fight villains like Cockroach and Mariah, who's a madam. Right? Let him fight prostitutes. Right. Let him fight Cottonmouth. Again, pimps and the pimps and hoes that these white people made up in their mind and placed them in Harlem.
Right, exactly. And basically they're just basically kind of like taking from what was in the 70s, what was already in the 80s, the stereotypes that were in the comic book, and just trying to bring them back. It's like, no, it's like, we don't live in that world anymore.
Right.
And that's a major problem, I think, with creatives too, that people, I mean, you think of like the BLM and you think of, like the Proud Boys and all these other people that are like, I mean, divided nation today, you still see that. You have people that are fighting against change. I mean, that should be their logo.
Well, they're not just fighting against, they're afraid of it.
They're afraid of it. That should be their logo. Trump should have ran on fighting against change. He would have, because that's what they're doing. They're afraid of the world that we live in. And I talked to even creative artists like the other day, like even artists of color, like that are, I would say ultra conservative, that are not open to they're not willing to acknowledge that, hey, yes, we do live in a diverse world. People are gay. People are transgender. Yeah, these people do exist. You're not sweeping them under the carpet anymore. And it's time to wake the fuck up, because it's not like they were just invented. This is not something new. I mean, you can go back in the Bible and you have gay people in the Bible. I mean, this is not something that's, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's like, wake up, you have to get with the times, but I think that there's a concerted effort to go against that. To live in this fictional world where Christopher Columbus discovered America and everyone's, a Norman Rockwell example of an American, and it's bullshit. It never was. It never existed. It was never that way.
Right.
I think
it's like the the whole myth of the Wild West, and the independent, like the independent lawman coming to like clean up a town. In reality, I mean, they were all dependent on financing for the railroads and everything, but they, that's what, but that image of that, strong silent type, like a Clint Eastwood and a spaghetti Western,
it's an American,
or John Wayne, like.
Yes.
That's what it is. It's an American myth. It's like, and people want to live in fiction, not in the real world. That's the problem.
But it's always a myth that supports the idea of the supreme, strong white male.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So we're getting heavy here.
But it makes you even better, stronger. Like you have to prove them wrong, as an actor, right? It makes you build character. Like, no, I'm not that person. I'm not just one-dimensional. I'm more than that. And I think whatever your politics is, it's about being human, and about bringing out the best in you. And as an actor, you want to take on any type of role because that's what you thrive. You thrive on these roles.
Yeah. But one thing I've noticed recently, and it's it's almost a little. Like it's almost like become so politically correct. On the other hand, like, in Hollywood, they go to one extreme. They either do like extreme stereotypes, or then they go the other way where people like are completely sanitized of anything that, makes them, like in a lot of things, like people have to be like, they take, like nothing seems authentic anymore, in terms of how they do things. It's sort of like everything sort of has to be, it either has to be extremely stereotypical or extremely, like sanitized the way they do things. And, now like, or politically correct, but not where they're really trying to make a true difference. It just sort of like, but it makes them feel better. Like,
well, yeah, I think the politically correct thing is like stepping on eggshells. I think that people who there's nothing you want to have your voice, but you don't want to be insulting to other people, to other cultures, or to be damaging, or to be debasing, or to belittle, or to deface other people. Of like that 70s show was one of those shows that I could not watch because I hated that fake Hispanic character.
Yes.
And people love that show, and I was like, this is like an insult to me. This is like face, but because it's not, we live in a very black and white America, and everyone in between kind of gets, well, you can make fun of everybody else. Just don't, so it's like, and I think that's changed over the last maybe 20 years. We're changing. But yeah, like that character in a sense is, to me, it was very insulting. And I was like, I can't watch this. I don't think this is funny. It's like.
Yeah, exactly. I felt the same way.
But it was very successful. And I think that, as a creator too, you fall into that all the time. It's like people expect you to, we're older guys. We're in that melting pot generation. And there was always an expectation of you saying, oh, we are American first and you're everything else after. And now I see that, a lot of men of color like ourselves, that that's part of the reason, I think, that because we were forced to push away our ethnicity and be American first and all this other nonsense, that now that we see the younger generation, like, hey, I'm openly gay, or hey, I'm openly, or like free to express themselves. And I think there's a little jealousy with the older generation, like, no, you can't do that. It's like we start taking on the roles of the grandfathers and pushing forward this very twisted agenda about, diminishing yourself or putting America first. And I think we've hit this precipice in our country where those things are colliding, physically colliding.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when
we need that. We need that. It's a good thing,
I remember when I was a kid, like, because I had grandparents who were old country on my dad's side, and I just wanted to be like the Brady Bunch, that was like the thing that was so ingrained of what like all American was,
right?
And then it turned out the Brady Bunch wasn't even the Brady Bunch.
Right. Or Leave It to Beaver, right?
Well, no. The Brady Bunch definitely was not the Brady Bunch.
Right.
So you see yourself getting back into movies?
Greg and the mom were getting it on.
Yeah, and Dad, the whole.
Tell us about also your roles. I know you worked with Edie Falco and Nurse Jackie, and that seems to be some really good acting there.
She was great. And again, another story there. I submitted for that to be like either an orderly or somebody or a patient in the hospital for Nurse Jackie. And they called me and I didn't get it. And then they called me and they said, hey, Bill, we've got a role coming up. Would you like to be a part of it? Would you like to do this? And again, I'm thinking that I know I submitted myself for orderly or patient. And I'm like, okay. And then I said, well, what is it about? And they said, oh, well, we need someone to be the janitor or Nurse Jackie. And I said, no, I can't do that one this week. Call me if something else comes up. And then they called me and I came back later on and I did play a patient. But I did not submit to be an orderly. I not to be a janitor.
Right.
I submitted to be the patient or an orderly. And they saw my pictures and they thought that I would make a good janitor.
What the fuck? Like, this is it's really disturbing. It goes back to like Spike Lee in Bamboozled, when he addresses the television and the writers and the way they perceive blacks in America, blacks on television. I think that Cosby, for all his faults, he was a groundbreaker and changed the game. You can't take that away from him. And
well, I believe that
180 away from that.
Yeah, I believe that he it's kind of a it's maybe a bit of a controversial opinion, but I don't even know if like he really paved the way for like somebody like eventually like Obama to become president.
Definitely.
That really kind of mainstreamed. It's showing these very upper middle class, professional.
It was definitely inspirational.
It was. Yeah. He was showing what really was there that people hadn't seen or didn't. Because we take it for granted. We live in New York. New York is a very diverse city. Even when you go outside of New York City into the burbs, it is still diverse compared to like you go to Arizona and there's It's very different. You know what I mean? Or Colorado, it's very different. It's like or New Mexico. It's like very, it's like I remember going to New Mexico, and it was like I had to go to like drive an hour before you saw a person of color. It's like, what I mean? It's just like it's very weird. That we're kind of, we take for granted, I think, in some sense, as New Yorkers, especially as a young New Yorker. I never traveled anywhere outside of the tri-state area. So I had no idea. I just assumed that everything was like New York, but it really isn't. As you get older and travel and do things and do shows and you see different people.
I just want to add also real quickly is that I think it also based on ignorance too. Like I think
absolutely.
That if people open their minds a little bit and not be anxious about change and have these kind of conversations, they'll realize that, I don't even know why I was thinking that. It's based, if we had these conversations face to face, people will begin to learn that, oh no, I'm not this person that I'm reading somewhere else. I'm not prejudiced. They just don't. They got to get out of their hole and experience
out of their COVID hole. Yeah.
And sometimes it's just kind of inadvertent. Sometimes it's inadvertent racism where they're just not even thinking about people of color or thinking about people other than themselves.
Right.
And that's where the rest of us get left out.
Right. So what is your dream role that you've yet to, what do you think is like the role that you see yourself being played, that your dream role that you haven't yet reached, that you'd like to do? Like what story or?
What I would, it's going to sound strange, but I would really love to do Dracula, not Blackula, but right. Dracula.
Dracula, yeah. Yeah, that sounds cool. Why?
Well, because again, it would be a chance to be this like anti-hero, but also kind of a romantic lead at the same time.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, they have so many different versions of him on Netflix now. And I don't think they missed the mark. I was like, this is not Dracula. Or even trying to make him into a superhero. They had that Dracula movie where it was kind of like he's supposed to be a superhero. I felt like they missed the mark. It looked like it was heavily edited. There was supposed to be more there, and then didn't make it onto the screen. Did you get to see that one?
Did not. I don't know if I saw that one.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I saw that Stephen King was like saying that he disagrees with the romanticization of vampires and stuff. He's more into the, what he portrayed in Salem's Lot, just making them evil, and not,
But the way Dracula has been, like for it is written, he does seduce women. Yeah. And vampires can only get into your house or your world if you invite them in. So if they're purely evil, you're never going to say, come on in, or you're never going to invite them in.
Right, exactly.
Well, I mean, I remember like True Blood, they tried to make the kind of weird, kind of analogy between, like these vampires who were sort of coming out of hiding, to the gay movement, right. They would even, and there was like a episode where like a girl had disappeared, like a teenage girl had disappeared for a couple of years, and then like one night she shows up at like her parents' house, and the parents look like something out of American Gothic, like that. They look really middle American, and there's a sister there too, and she knocks on the door. They said she knocked on the door, and she said like, can I come in and watch you have dinner?
Yeah.
And then they wind up taking her back in, and then they're at some like pro-vampire thing, so they really would send up the whole thing.
Yeah. I would have loved to have seen a black vampire on True Blood.
Yeah. Yeah, because they had other characters of color, but they didn't. Well, didn't at the end of it they made one of the characters become a vampire one of the African American characters toward the end of the show.
I think so.
The woman, I think.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I think her name. What's her name? Rutina or Wesley?
Yeah, Wesley. Rutina Wesley.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It wasn't done well though when they did.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. At that point, to me, they had jumped the shark and they're doing all kinds of bizarre things.
Right. That's like, we're making so much money, we don't care what we're doing now.
Right. No, they were running out of plot lines, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, the only long-standing black character, male character, was Lafayette. And because he was so flamboyant and feminine, in their minds, he was never a threat to white male superiority.
Right. And he actually passed away, so it's
in real life.
Yeah.
I actually worked with him.
Yeah. Oh, did you really? Wow. On which
there was an episode. He played an episode of Elementary, where he was a guest star, and I was his stand-in for that scene.
Oh wow.
And basically, stand-ins, you get there and you stand in place so they can adjust the lighting, they can adjust the sound.
Right.
For the cameraman, that way they're not tying up the actors, and the actors could be like resting or going over their lines or getting makeup applied while you're standing in. And I was the same size and same coloring as he. I was just able to be a stand-in, and this was probably maybe about a year before we slowly committed suicide. And even on that set, I could tell that he wasn't well or up to it wasn't just him acting. He was definitely kind of like down and not feeling well and just kind of out of it. Because also as a stand-in, you do the movements as choreographed, and then the actor comes over to you and you talk to them and say, okay, on this line, you're supposed to be here. And on this line, you're sitting here, but we need you to look there.
Right.
And as I would talk to him, he was like listening, but again, it was like he was on something or there was a wall up and he wasn't there.
Right.
He's actually the second actor that I worked with that died after that. I also worked on Philip Seymour Hoffman's last project, which was called God's Pocket.
Right.
And it's supposed to take place in like Pittsburgh, but they shot it up in Yonkers because that's a part of New York that still looks like the 70s and older.
Right.
So on the set, it was a hot day. And so in that particular scene, Philip Seymour Hoffman is supposed to be like walking down the street. And it's a great movie. It's a strange little movie, but it's a good movie called God's Pocket. Yeah. And you'll see one of the scenes where Philip Seymour Hoffman and myself are actually in the scene together.
Nice.
But because Philip Seymour Hoffman was not feeling well and dealing with his own dependency, drug issues, we shot long hours because they had to shoot as long as they could, as long as Philip Seymour Hoffman was okay.
Right.
But because of that, as in the union, you can only work so many hours, then they have to give you a break. They have to give you a lunch.
Right.
They were more concerned with getting the film in the can. So they just paid us meal penalties and penalties because they wanted to film as long as Philip Seymour Hoffman was okay.
Right. I mean, behind the set, do you still see that? Like a lot of drug dependency? I was watching that movie Dorothy, and they showed how they were like, she would be hungry and they just kept feeding her pills to wake her up, pills to fall asleep. And it seems like this is to me like a string of that's been through Hollywood and actors and what like plagues the industry, but it's fueled by it at the same time. And what do you think?
Well, because it's show business, but it's business first. So whatever it takes to do your thing, either you or your manager, or somebody says, "Here, just take this, or drink this, or do that."
Yeah,
they were as long as basically they get a film.
Yeah, there was a documentary recently on Showtime about John Belushi.
John Diamond.
Yeah. And what happened was they were saying that they literally had one guy on one side of him and another guy on the other side holding him up for scenes toward the end.
Yeah.
Literally he couldn't even stand on his own. And he was having problems even on Saturday Night Live a few years before that. And like somebody, I think, even said to the production thing, some doctor said, if he films this week, if he does he's gonna he's potentially gonna die.
Yeah.
And in the production, I don't think he got along well with the producers, but they said, let him die. They would just rather they were just sick of him at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the thing with Saturday Night Live is they rehearse all week, and then on Saturday they film the show from 8 to 10, and then you get a break, and then they film it live at 11:30. So that way, when they sell it back to like Comedy Central or reruns, they use whichever version of that skit worked best. And if something does not work well at all in the 8 to 10 slot, they will take that scene out. And so at 11:30, no one will see that ever again.
Wow. I didn't know. It's pretty cool. How was it working on Saturday Night Live? You did it twice, right? You did the FedEx guy.
Well, it was the same weekend.
Oh, the same
weekend.
Tape.
One part was taped that Friday morning. Right. And that was the thing where I played a UPS guy. And now again, that was about back then. There was lots of things about like fat shaming. So different actresses like Tyra Banks and different actresses would put on a fat suit. Women who were supposedly glamorous would put on a fat suit and walk around to see what kind of reaction they got and how people stared at them and how it made them feel funny. And then they'd all come back on TV and cry about how difficult it was to be a fat person as opposed to being the normal, beautiful, glamorous self. So Saturday Night Live, well, actually, J.B. Smoove wrote the scene. And in this particular scene, Rachel Dretch was supposed to put on a fat suit and go out, and people were treated mean and rude. But J.B. Smoove, being a black man, his take on it was that white guys would be mean to her, but she had a little thickness, so the black guys would like her. So I played the black guy who was the UPS guy, and she comes out of like 30 Rock, and my character says, "Hey, you looking good, baby." And then there's another black guy who was a friend of mine. She's going through the turnstile, and he holds the door for her. But basically, just showing that black men were okay with her being fat.
Right.
But SNL did not want to use that as their message.
Right.
So they didn't play it like that. They just showed. So her character just said things like, "Hey, well, that guy was very nice to me," or "This guy really appreciated me." But they didn't bring home the part that it was like only the black guys that appreciated her.
Right.
So that was shot that Friday morning, and again that went so well. They called me back to do the opening, which is basically a cold opening, where they're all singing Christmas carols. And that year, everybody was talking about, we have to take the Christ out of Christmas, so you couldn't sing like Christmas songs that mentioned Christ or God. So instead of singing "Away in a Manger," we sang "Away in a Barn Box." And at that point, Donald, I think it was Daryl Hammond that played Donald Trump.
Right? Yeah, he did a good job. He did a very.
Daryl Hammond has spoken about it. The fact that he himself had his own substance abuse issues on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, well, he did a whole documentary about his entire, history. I mean, his, not just the drugs, but his whole odyssey. Let's put it that way. Psychologically and everything.
And it was evident that day on the set again that he was dealing with something outside of just Saturday Night Live.
I agree. Yeah. I always liked Eddie Murphy when he did that skit about being a white man, and he puts on the blonde wig and takes the bus, and that always struck me. And then I actually tried it myself in my 20s. I became a blonde for 3 years, and I got to tell you, it's true. People treat you differently when you're blonde. It is true. I became addicted to being blonde. I didn't want to go back, because once I grew the facial hair in, and once I was a brunette, I felt discriminated against, or even treated.
They've said it. Blondes have more fun.
Yeah, it's like to the extent where I was even recruited at a bar in Manhattan by a guy. We were under red lights, so you saw the blonde hair. You couldn't see the skin color because I'm not pale. But it's like he tried to recruit me for the KKK. And
wow.
In Manhattan, and I was just like, what the hell? And that's what
you could have gone undercover. It could have been a
it was just so bizarre. It was just a bizarre experience, So thanks for being with us. Do you have anywhere where your fans can reach you, like a website or social media, or what?
Well, of course, on Instagram, it's Uptown Bill 007.
Mm-hmm.
And Facebook, just look up Uptown Bill.
Uptown Bill. All right. That's
Great.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being with us. Stay with us. We're going to be signing.
I want to say that the reason I really got into cosplay was because I went to a Comic-Con.
Right.
And when I came out as Green Lantern, my first cosplay.
I remember that. That's when we first met.
People really, even like the white cosplayers were very happy to see the Black Green Lantern because they were taking all these Justice League photos, but there was never a black guy with them.
Mm-hmm.
They would get together their own group of white friends, and they would come as 4 or 5 of the superheroes from the Justice League, but they didn't have any black friends. Mm-hmm. So when I would show up, they're like, "Oh, the house, John Stewart, come in," and they would welcome me in because they wanted diversity in their photos, but they didn't know any black guys. They weren't close enough with any black people to ask them to join them to be a part of it.
Right.
That's amazing.
And then black parents, I don't know. Again, as a black guy growing up, I knew that when Santa came to the mall, there was probably going to be a white Santa. But after we found out that there was a black Santa at the mall, all the black parents would tell the other people that the black Santa's going to be at the mall between 2 and 4.
Right.
And then the black parents would get their kids to the mall so they can pick it with the black Santa. That's when I first showed up at Comic-Con several years ago, there weren't a lot of black people doing it. Right. All the black parents and the black people would run to me and flock to me because they wanted to be represented too. They wanted to see someone that looked like them.
Exactly.
And that's when I saw how much of a need there was for it. So that's what kind of spurred me on. And just like live theater, I felt appreciated when I did it.
Oh, yeah. So out of the ones I've seen you do, you've done Joker, Steel, Batwing, Green Lantern, Slickback, Coming to America. I mean, which one's your favorite that you enjoy doing the most?
I like the freedom that being the Joker gives me.
Yeah.
And then once again, nobody had ever seen a black Joker before.
Right.
And most people really enjoy it. But again, you'll have this conservative white person that'll say, "Well, which Joker is you?" Or the Joker's not white.
Well, I mean, in the 60s on the old, of all things in the old Batman series, they had Cesar Romero playing the Joker. And on top of that, he actually kept his mustache under the makeup.
Yeah.
Very true.
So whenever somebody wants to be prejudiced or come at me sideways and wants to know which Joker I am or the Joker's not black, I'll say, remember the Batman series where there was a Joker and then Eartha Kitt was a Catwoman? Mm-hmm. Well, I am the son of that Joker and that Catwoman.
There you go. I like that. But there was a Joker cartoon in the early 2000s where he did capoeira and he had dreadlocks. So I always thought that was interesting. It was very different. But people hated that.
Those are people that we know.
People were against that Batman cartoon. They were really against it. It was just like,
oh yeah, they didn't like that at all.
It's a cartoon though. They're drawings. That's what people have to realize. It's like people. They have to stop, just like Star Wars, and this whole Baby Yoda thing. People have to realize Star Wars, just like Batman, has a generation. It's a generational thing, and there's a new interpretation for the next generation, and you should be open to whatever it is, because it's not your Star Wars, but it's this generation. It's not meant for you. It's just like I tell guys, they're a friend of mine who was complaining about SJW comics, and I had to say, well, what's an SJW? He's like, social justice warrior, and I was like, well, what's wrong with that?
Right.
But that sounds like a good thing, but they put it in a negative connotation, and then I go, SJWs have taken over comics, and that's why nobody reads them. And I was like, well, I'd say it's the opposite. Maybe there's not enough of that, and maybe that's why they've lost their audience. I don't know,
right.
But I'm an oddball. I think the opposite. Most people think, but it's not meant for you. It's not your generation. It's for the younger generation that are pro SJW, which it's kind of a, it's a silly term, but at the same time, it does encompass what they're afraid of. They're afraid of change.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Any last thoughts, Bill, or that you'd like to add before?
I just wanted to say that people really enjoy when I first time I did a Coming to America cosplay, I did it because it was easy, because I already had a black tuxedo. Right. So I said, I can make these, accessories to go along with this black tuxedo, and I can do Coming to America. Again, because that's the easy cosplay. There's no mask on my face. There's no cape. There's no wings. It's a tuxedo and a crown, basically. So I just did it as easy. And when I got there, again, people started sharing with me their memories of seeing the movie Coming to America. And this is before they even talk about Coming to America, too. And it just made people feel so good. And some people had something like the quotes that they had. And I couldn't believe the number of people that went on a date and were married to the woman that they took to see Coming to America. So at Comic-Con, I probably did about at least 4 videos to the wives and the girlfriends that these men who came to Comic-Con had taken their girlfriends to.
Right.
And to kind of bring back like a memory or a romance. Right. They wanted me to create a video. One kid said that he started Coming to America when he broke his leg. He was 12 years old. It came on TV. He was staying with his grandmother. Mm-hmm. His grandmother let him watch Coming to America while he was staying home with a broken leg.
Right.
And his grandmother passed. And again, it brought back great memories for him.
Right.
So he wanted to take a picture of me, and so he sent the picture to his grandfather who was still alive and his parents. So again, when you can touch somebody and bring back a memory, for me, that's always a good thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's great.
That's amazing.
That goes into your whole acting thing of just connection. It's all about connecting and communication, and sharing a moment and being in the moment.
And people really love a pimp named Slickback.
Oh yeah, I thought that.
And again, for me, that was another easy cosplay because I already had a purple suit as the Joker, but most people don't even know it's the same suit.
Right.
Because the Joker, the suit, the jacket is open, and I'm wearing a bright orange vest, and I got a bow tie, I got the hair, I got the makeup. They're not even looking at the purple suit, other for context.
Right.
As a pimp named Slickback, it's all about being that guy in a purple suit.
Right.
The pimp in a purple suit.
Maybe you could do Prince next with the same suit.
And and people love the idea of seeing this character live and in person. And it's amazing the number of women that want to take photos with me as if they were one of my prostitutes. I never propose that because again, I'm not about like doing any kind of like toxic male imagery.
Yeah.
But if she wants that, I will allow it to a certain extent. Right. There have been some women that have gone too far. I'm like, no, I can't do that photo with you.
Right. You're like, stop.
Or the number of women that says, can you take a picture of you smacking me? I'm like, no.
Like, I'll take that, but don't post it.
Right, yes.
Your own private collection.
That's great. Maybe we can definitely get you on part 2. Maybe we'll hear more about those kinds of stories next time we get you on here.
Thank you for coming on, Bill. I mean, you're amazing.
Thank you guys for the invitation.
Yeah, you're welcome. And hopefully we'll have you back, and hopefully I'll see you in the con soon. Once this is over. All right. Thanks so much.
All right.
Stay on after we go sign off. Go ahead. Sign us off. Oh,